By the time you watch this, Hurricane Milton will be gone. At least gone from Florida. Right now, it's swirling harmlessly over the Atlantic. And what a relief that is, because less than 24 hours before I recorded this, everybody was fearing the worst.
If you choose to stay in one of those evacuation areas, you're gonna die.
I can't imagine what you would feel when you ask for help and it's too dangerous and help's not coming.
This water, if it goes up to 12 to 15 feet, like they're saying, a lot of people will die.
This is a matter of life and death, and I can't put it any more bluntly or directly than that.
Now, there was good reason to be cautious. Hurricane Milton was the fastest growing Gulf of Mexico storm on record, ramping up in power from a tropical storm to a Category 5 hurricane with 250 km/h plus winds in just over 48 hours. Tampa Bay, especially, was incredibly vulnerable.
Over 3.5 million people live in the Tampa Bay region. And the last time they had a major hurricane was over 100 years ago when they only had 160,000 people. So that vulnerability is just off the charts.
So let me show you what 24 hours of fear, anxiety, and yes, destruction look like.
Well, good morning. We're here at the Emergency Operations Center. Hurricane Milton is heading our way.
The morning before landfall, Florida's governor made clear that the state is directly in the hurricane's path.
We are bracing and are prepared to receive a major hit.
And long-distance driving conditions are already getting dangerous.
All those counties have multiple shelters that are open. There's a lot of space in those shelters right now, and certainly it would be safe to do a very short evacuation, tens of miles, rather than get on the interstate and go.
Those local shelters, nearly 150 of them open throughout the state, had capacity for about 200,000 people. But at this point in the day, only about 31,000 were making use of them. Meanwhile, most people had prepared the best they could. Sandbags were in place, exposed glass boarded up, and the Tampa Bay General Hospital had its staff put up special fencing to keep water out, which actually worked really well when Helene hit 2 weeks ago. But just outside Tampa, a close call.
1313.
This video came in from a state trooper who found a bull terrier left on its own, tied to a fence.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. It's okay, buddy. It's okay.
They posted it online, urging people not to abandon their pets because weather conditions were about to get worse.
I just want to warn people that the conditions are likely going to continue to deteriorate throughout the course of the day.
At around 1 p.m. Eastern Time, the National Hurricane Center issues a bulletin. Tropical storm force winds are just offshore, and now is the time to stay inside and away from windows. But that wasn't always easy. Some living in mobile homes, perhaps most at risk, felt like they had no choice but to stay.
I just decided to stay here with my mom.
I think we're going to be safe. We're praying anyway. My wife is bedridden, so I can't really go anyway.
We thought about going to a hotel, but we have cats, and we can't seem to find a hotel that will take all our cats. I'm really scared. At this point, I am beyond scared.
But the NHC's next update would nod to what would become Milton's first deadly strike. Multiple tornado warnings in effect across Florida Peninsula. I'll show you something. This is a map of every tornado warning issued across the state of Florida before the hurricane even made landfall. This is most of Florida. And here, I can see a list of every tornado sighting, an actual report of a seen tornado received by the U.S. Storm Prediction Center. 45 of them across 12 different counties, starting at 1:42 p.m., that's about 7 hours before landfall, and only ending about 8 hours later.
A series of dangerous tornadoes touching down throughout south central Florida.
I mean, look at this image. This is incredible.
Like this, all this happened like instantaneously. Like these windows blew out. I was about probably right here when it happened. Probably 1 minute total. Probably less.
One family in Fort Myers was inside their house when a tornado ripped through their neighborhood.
And I heard a piece of glass crack and it sucked the whole roof off, and I felt the thing suck me up, and I grabbed my kid and my wife and hunkered down.
Those tornadoes and fierce winds would, according to Florida's emergency management director, destroy 125 homes, most of them mobile homes in senior living communities. In St. Lucie County, a massive metal structure serving as a shelter for patrol cars. That's a 10,000 square foot building. It collapsed when the sheriff there said it was hit by a tornado. And as of now, I've seen reports of at least 4 deaths due to tornadoes across the state, and several more than that injured, trapped in some cases by fallen debris. And this is, once again, before the eye wall of the hurricane even hit. You can get a good sense of what it was like to face Milton head on by zooming way, way out. This is from a weather satellite, taking a picture every 30 seconds. You can see the storm and how massive a system it is compared to that white outline, which is Florida. And those blue flashes, lightning. If you were lucky enough to be at the extreme outer edge of the storm's reach, it looked like this. This is from a live cam positioned at the southernmost tip of Florida. For these folks, it's just wet. But if you were closer to the storm's eye as it was about to make a direct hit, it looked more like this.
And I am at about 2 feet of water right here, and we're probably 5 to 7 feet of water above sea level at this location.
Reporters and storm chasers were out and about across the impact zone, in many cases live streaming for hours at a time to millions of people watching, if you had power and an internet connection. This was in Fort Myers, utility poles downed. And you could find scenes like that across most of Florida. This is current as of the time I record this, after the storm. The darker the color on this map, the closer you get to 100% of customers having no power. This represents, right now, more than 3 million people in the dark. But it was only when the eye of Hurricane Milton reached the coast, Floridians would find out just what this storm was capable of. By now, it was becoming clear, depending on where you lived in Florida, you may have had very different experiences with Milton. As predicted, Florida was hit directly, but Tampa Bay wasn't ground zero, as widely feared. It was Siesta Key, just to Tampa's south in Sarasota County. Flood gauges along the coast recorded a rapid rise in water levels, about 4 feet above normal in some places. But it was easy to misjudge the storm because it wasn't always obvious which way the water was even going. You see how the storm rotates counterclockwise, meaning if you're at the southern edge of the eye wall, the wind is pushing towards land. But if you're at the northern edge of the eye wall, the wind is pushing away towards water. In real terms, that meant you could go from several feet of storm surge forcing water into city streets to eerie calm inside the eye of the hurricane itself, to water actually getting sucked out, as was the case in Tampa Bay. Water levels there actually dropped at some points to 3 feet below normal. No, Tampa Bay's issue wasn't storm surge. It was intense rain. In all, it's estimated Milton dropped as many as 16 inches of rain on St. Petersburg, which is part of the Tampa Bay area, representing a 1 in 1,000-year rainfall in that region. The wind tore up the roof of the stadium where the Tampa Bay Rays play. Potable water was shut off due to a water main break. This crane in St. Petersburg collapsed, tearing a gaping hole in the building next to it. And in various parts of the state, conditions were so treacherous 911 stopped responding to emergency calls.
So as the storm conditions worsen, when it becomes unsafe or life-threatening for our responders, we may have to temporarily suspend services.
We'll be ready to respond as soon as it's safe.
It wouldn't be until the early morning hours of Thursday, as Hurricane Milton began to emerge out the other side of Florida, rescuers would begin to find a way to reach those who were trapped. Apartment buildings surrounded by water, the only safe way to get them out by boat. There were, of course, those who decided to weather the storm and made it through. This man swore he'd protect his boat through the storm, no matter how threatening it may have looked. He apparently stayed during Helene, stayed during Milton, and by all accounts, everything went according to plan.
It was pretty mellow. The wind picked up for a little bit and bounced me around.
Was he brave or lucky? Hard to tell. But what's clear is that Hurricane Milton, while destructive, could have been far, far worse. We didn't see 15 feet of water submerging any homes, but it doesn't take a lot of water or wind to uproot lives and destroy livelihoods. And while Hurricane Milton may be back out to sea, Florida knows hurricane season isn't over yet.